Michelle, can you please read the sunshine law?
This is a regular meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin boards, filed with the Borough Clerk, and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Can we please have a roll call, Michelle?
Member Cooper. Here. Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Here. Here.
We're good. Councilmember Good.
Yep, couldn't unmute, so I'm here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco.
I'm here. I'll be on camera in 1 second.
Okay. And Councilmember Sheridan.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
For the record, Borough Administrator Jay Delaney. And Borough Attorney Mark Miller.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. For the record, Councilman Cooper is in council chambers this evening. If everyone could please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If everyone can remain standing, please, for a moment of silence. Tonight's moment of silence is dedicated to everyone who's still continuing to push through the COVID pandemic, as well as in honor of September 11th and the 19th anniversary of those tragic events. We don't have another council meeting prior to that, so I'd like to dedicate tonight's moment of silence to that as well. Thank you.
What? Of course I did.
Are you guys getting any feedback when I'm speaking?
Not at all.
So I am, but I don't know if it's me. I'm having some issues right now.
Councilman Fotopoulos, can you hear a feedback when I'm speaking or no?
Negative.
Okay, thank you. So tonight's proclamation is in honor of Hunger Action Month. And whereas hunger and poverty are issues of grave concern in the United States and New Jersey and the Borough of Keyport. And whereas the Borough of Keyport is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger. Whereas the Borough of Keyport is committed to working with Fulfill, formerly the Food Bank of Monmouth and Ocean County, to educate people about the role and importance of food banks in addressing hunger and to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And whereas more than 215,000 individuals in Monmouth and Ocean counties now rely on food provided by Fulfill and its partners since the beginning of the pandemic. And whereas the unemployment level is the highest it has ever been in the history of the state, the poverty level for a family of 4 is $25,465, and 9.5% of families live below that level. And whereas since March 13th, 2020, Fulfill has provided 1,986,909 meals, including 16,000 more meals per day than the year before. And 903,984 of those meals were provided by Monmouth County residents, to Monmouth County residents, I'm sorry. Whereas due to the pandemic, 1 in every 6 people in Monmouth and Ocean counties received emergency Fulfill and their network of food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. Whereas food banks across the country, including Fulfill, will host numerous events throughout the month of September to bring awareness and attention to encourage involvement in the efforts to end hunger in their local community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Mayor and Borough Council of Keyport, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey do hereby recognize September Hunger Action Month and call this observation to the attention of our citizens. And we will, per request of former Lieutenant Governor Cavano, we will send a copy of the signed proclamation over to them for their request. And thank you to everyone, volunteers, all the volunteers that assist almost around the clock to keep the food pantry right here in Keyport operating, as well as the food trucks that Monmouth County sends to both high rises. They're actually right outside in the driveway on Friday, making a large delivery to the residents that come down from the high rises. So I'm glad to see they're still doing that. Okay. We are going to have the public portion of the agenda items only, but prior to that, I would just like to make a note that I'm requesting for the minutes on from the August 18th meeting to be pulled until the next meeting. I just have to clarify something. And I just want to check with any other members of council if anything is going to be requested to be pulled before we open to the public.
I'm going to request to pull R2236, the mid-cycle grant. Just get to the numbers.
Are you pulling that, or you just want separate consideration?
I like to pull it. You want me to explain why?
I think if you're pulling it all together, we would need a motion and a second, I believe, and then a roll call if we're going to pull it. If it's going to be just a different discussion for a different vote, then we don't. Am I correct, Mr. Moon?
That's accurate. If you want to pull it and not have it considered, that's going to require a motion. If you want to pull it separate apart from the consent agenda to be voted on separately, that can be done by request.
Well, the reason I'm asking to be pulled, this is impacting the rec committee budget, which has not been communicated to the rec committee.
I mean, I think there are discussions that can be had. I mean, you're entitled to pull it, but we would need a second and a roll call, or we can talk about the considerations and then decide after.
Okay.
So I would suggest,
we could talk about consideration.
You can table it.
that we pull this for separate. Can we pull it for, not pull it, but can we just do it under separate consideration?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll decide after discussions whether it goes to vote or not. Okay, anyone else have anything that would need to be pulled or clarified prior to opening to the public? Okay, I'll need a motion and with a reminder that this is only for items on the consent, on the entire agenda. Any other items would be at the end of the second public portion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, does anyone have anything that's on the agenda to discuss? from the public. We'll go through whoever is on video first, and then we'll turn to phone line. Hi, Ms. Funk, I see you raising your hands. Is this about the letter that was received this afternoon? That would be at the second public portion, because that's not on the agenda. Can we go to the phone lines, please, Michelle, if you can unmute the phone line? Okay, if anyone on the phone lines or is not visible in the camera, you would need to unmute yourself, and then we'll go in order if there's any questions about items on the agenda.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Graham.
Hi, Elmer J. Graham, Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Can you please explain Resolution 23620?
Yes, that's the one that we will be having a separate consideration for later, but the actual title of it is Establishing the 2020 Keyport Recreation Microgrant Program, which is similar to the application process that was adopted last year, and it is allocated in the recreation line item budget for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Hi, Mr. Lane.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Under resolutions, R231, 232, and 233, the 5-year tax abatement that were pulled at the last council meeting without any reason given. Can you give an update on why they were pulled and why we're not acting on them in view of the fact that they generate more than $2 million in increased tax base for the borough? Also, under
if the council member asks for something to be pulled and there's a support of that amongst the dais, then there doesn't have to be a reason given. But I believe that there's still, I'll defer that to Councilman Good and Mr. Delaney, but I believe that there's still some paperwork that they're following up on.
I look forward to hearing why that was. Under unfinished business, give some timeline and solution for the outfall pipe at Beach Park, which restricts the outflow of fresh water, rain, and in the event of a hurricane or a severe storm will really be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Going once? Twice? Have a motion to close to the public?
To close to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next I'll move on to mayor's updates. I would say the biggest update that I would like to give is regarding the thank you, I guess, and information about Monmouth County freeholders allocation of CARES Act funding for our nonprofit establishments and business owners in Monmouth County. I was able to receive an update on where we're at with that. Currently to date, out of the over 300 businesses in Keyport and dozens of nonprofits, 47 applications have been received on behalf of establishments within Keyport. And that's out of 2,013 total applications that the county has received in total. That doesn't mean that those have all been approved, but that's what they've received. I hope by the next meeting that I'll have more information on what's been approved for Keyport. To date, they've paid out $7 million to business owners and nonprofits in Monmouth County. So I'm glad that that program is moving ahead seamlessly. Okay, so the next part we will move on to are consent agenda items number 23420, 23520, 23720, and 23820. Do any council members have anything to discuss on those for resolution?
Hi, it's
We'll
Councilman.
vote on those and then,
Yes,
I'm
I
sorry.
just had a question. So regarding well, it's an introduction, I guess it doesn't matter. Well, my question is the adoption of the Hudson Point redevelopment plan, is the plan, looking at the documentation, it seems to be the plan that we
Hold
agreed
on,
upon.
sorry. So are you talking about, that's not any of the 4 resolutions?
Oh.
So this is 234, 20, 235, 20, 237.
Sorry, okay,
20,
I jumped ahead,
238.
sorry, okay.
No problem, no
All
problem.
right, so do you want me to
Any council discussion on those?
Yes, I'll discuss the Michael Grant piece, I guess.
No, that we'll get it. We already pulled, we're doing that separate vote.
Oh,
So
okay.
these are just the 4. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve 234, 20, 235, 20, 237, 20, and 238, 20?
Motion approved. Second.
Can I please have a roll call on those, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper. Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Yes.
Councilmember Good.
Yes.
And Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
And Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So now 23620, I had some notes to point out on that. So I'll point out my notes, and then Councilwoman Zerman, I believe you said you wanted to discuss this further. Well, I understand that the $7,500 was, appropriated in, or was allocated, not appropriated yet, allocated in the current budget that was adopted. Obviously, budget was adopted prior to knowing the amount of municipal impacts that we're going to be facing from dire financial hardships in the state. I do want to point out that this resolution is to approve an application process, not an actual application. The applications would still have to come before the council to be approved. But we do need to be mindful when we're talking about all of this, that the proposed state budget that was introduced last week is calling for significant funding decreases to clean communities, our recycling program, the MPP program, and possibly Municipal Alliance if they cut the funding to the county. So those are just at the scratching of the surface of how our municipal budget could be impacted, or services that we receive funding for in our borough could possibly be impacted. The way the budget would work for our municipal budget that was already adopted would be that as of November 1st, any line item can be transferred to something else if we needed it, if we found that we were facing some financial hardships. So while it was allocated back in the beginning of our budget being adopted, we should be mindful that we could be facing some serious financial hardships moving forward. So my suggestion would be 2 things. 1, remove the word recreation out of the mini grant title. And 2, since the state budget is expected to be adopted on October 1st, maybe we look at the timeline of this grant application until we know what the state budget is going to be passed with. If maybe they're going to put all the funding back in, and then we won't have such a hard municipal impact. So my suggestion would be that we move, if it moves forward to a vote. Currently, the application process shows first come, first serve, basis up until October 15th. But since we won't know a budget until October 1st, I would say maybe we postpone this to November 1st. So I'm open to conversations and discussion. I also feel that we have to be mindful that while all the other nonprofits were eligible to apply, well, most of them were eligible to apply for the Monmouth County CARES Act for up to $10,000. Our first aid and fire were not. And the reason they were not is because the monies that they've lost during the pandemic are funds that they usually do fundraisers with that are attributed to gambling, and therefore they could not consider them a loss. So all the bingo that First Aid does, they could not ask for a reprieve from that from the Monmouth County CARES funding, and the fire department couldn't do anything with the fair. So I think there should be consideration that, you know, maybe that money can be allocated to helping them too. So just want to put those pointers out there. And then I guess we can open the council discussion. Councilwoman McDermott, you said you had comments?
Yes. So two things on the application, and this is a question for Councilman Sheridan. So based on discussions with last year's grant, anything that came in after December 31st of the calendar year is going to hit the next year's budget. So when I look at this application, it says all paperwork must be submitted by March 15, 2021, which from my understanding would be hitting next year's budget, not this year's budget. So that due date might need to be altered to be December. So we're not, this is according to our CFO, Tom Fallon, that doesn't hit our 2021 budget.
Our 2021 budget goes in effect. We're a fiscal year of July 1st.
Okay. Okay, so it'll be fine. Okay.
Am I wrong?
I don't.
Maybe not July 1st. Sorry. Wait. So hold on. Actually, Mr. Delaney is saying something. What were you saying?
We're actually on a calendar year basis.
Right.
January 1 to December 31. Any funds that would be approved.
So we can't hear you. I'm sorry. We
Can you
can't.
turn
No, they can't hear you. They can't hear you. They can't hear you. Hold on one second. Try now. No, they can't hear at all. Is your volume up?
Okay.
Maybe now?
How about, okay.
Yes.
I'll repeat what I said. We're on a January 1 to December 31 fiscal calendar year. Any funds that would be approved in terms of individual applications that are recipients of this grant, those funds would be encumbered in this budget year. So they would be available for the reimbursement process, even if the reimbursements were submitted after January 1st.
Okay.
That
Thank you.
makes sense.
Thank you for clarifying. I guess the date is a bit long for us to be waiting for paperwork. I mean, if someone wants to apply for this, they should be submitting everything at least by January 31st of the next year.
Well, again, the dates are subject to the
Right.
council's discretion in terms of establishing the program. It is a short cycle in terms of having the application submitted by October 15th. Most of these, based on last year's cycle, were for equipment type purchases. So the idea would be to duplicate that. We have actually tightened up and specified that the current last year's program did not have a deadline for submission of the reimbursement. So there was some confusion there. This eliminates that confusion by including the specifics as to the deadline for reimbursement submission.
I just think so if this was part of the line item for the budget for 2021, and this is something we could discuss for 2021 budgeting, but regarding the budget for the rec committee, we would have exceeded if we would have had the summer. COVID-19 did deter a lot of recreation committee spending because we couldn't have social events. There wasn't socializing. But like, for example, summer camp does cost the borough up to $25,000 regarding operating and all the expenses just in salary and programming. So I just want to make sure, just for clarification, that, you know, that if it was approved as a line item, I would have to communicate this to the rec committee. I don't think the rec committee was aware that $7,500 was allocated to one specific program. When we saw the budget, we thought that that was for recreation committee events. not specifically for this micro grant program. So that's what I would like to make sure I communicate to the rec committee, to know that this, if and when this is approved, that that money is line item for something else.
I think in the logistics of it, because it was already allocated in the municipal budget, I think what could solve all of that, and that's where a lot of misunderstanding happened last year, and Recreation Committee was getting a lot of pushback about all of this because they kept getting questioned about the application process when it wasn't even there. They voted down the whole process. So I just think a way to resolve that would be, even though it's in the line item for this year under recreation, I think if we took out the word recreation out of the title of the grant.
I'm in agreement with that.
That's fine. The grant program just gets an amount. I mean, when we're doing the budget, we don't have certain committees or groups in mind when we do it. It's just an amount. And tonight we're just talking about the process. But I mean, taking out the word recreation, you can ask Mark, but I don't think it changes the intent of that. And we could furthermore discuss when grants come of age, when they come to us to approve or not approve, we can see what the situation is. But I mean, tonight's just it's just the process. But enough groups other than recreation do apply for it, so that we don't have to put recreation in the title. I think that's fine.
Recreation doesn't apply for this at all. These are all nonprofits within the community.
I guess my question would be, is the intent of the program to be specifically focused to recreational activities, not in the sense of specifically the recreational committee, but like, is it supposed to be like youth sports programs, or can it be, environmental group that wants to do a cleanup project, or some of the.
It was the Art Society. It was plenty of those last year.
The idea was that it was supposed to be any of those groups. Community group that wants to do beach cleanup, the Art Society, the Garden Club, certainly youth sports. I'm trying to think of other groups, but you get what I'm saying.
Received it. The Girls and Boys Club received some funding too. Okay. So it was very blended. It wasn't just recreational, but they do have to meet the qualifications.
Yeah. Council President Sheridan was, I think, is accurate. I mean, the name is just the name. I think it's the more important thing is getting an understanding of the intent and what type of programs this micro grant program is for.
I mean, to me, it's more community program than a recreation program.
Yeah, I mean, that might even be a better term to use, as a community program rather than a recreation program, because Councilwoman McDermott, I think you're right. The fact that it has the term recreation in it seems to imply some sort of relationship to the recreation committee, which was not intended.
And just the other thing is just a due date for the paperwork. I mean, I agree with the mayor. October is a tight date, because then they have to submit this before the agenda closes, the next October meeting. The other thing too is waiting till March for an organization to submit paperwork. They should have this done by January 31st.
I just want to point out that might not necessarily be true if we were talking about an organization like a sports team that's thinking about maybe ordering something for their upcoming spring season. They might not order that until January or December.
Yeah, the issue that we ran into was that had to do with what Jay was talking about, the encumbering of the funds, or encumberment of the funds. I'm not sure what the word is, but that's the reason for the late March date. I believe, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, they still have to submit the application in this year, don't they? I can't hear you, Jay. Can't hear you.
But I just also want to note, just as before Jay speaks, they still have to meet the criteria and submit some of that paperwork as part of their application. The application is not complete until they give us everything.
Absolutely, and that was what happened last year too. I'm glad we're not talking about eliminating this altogether. I did have a couple of questions. Does recreation get any funding from the state? We having a problem? Okay.
From my understanding, no, but I would defer to Councilman Sheridan.
No, I know the answer. The answer is no.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Hear me now?
Yeah. Yep.
On my
Sorry,
phone.
we definitely had a tech issue here. Can we go back to Mr. Delaney, please?
Mr.
Okay.
Delaney, the apps have to be in by December 31st, correct?
Actually, October 15th was the application submission date. That way we can make, the governing body could approve the award prior to the end of the year. And the funds would be encumbered in this budget year.
Okay. And that's, that's probably okay. It's not much more time considering that we're just getting the application together. I don't anticipate a huge amount of application. I did somehow the Cub Scouts were under the impression, the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts were under the impression this year that the micro grant wasn't funded, and I'm not sure how that happened, but they're looking to do it again, as is the Art Society and some of the others. I think that the nature, we can talk about the nature of the micro grant at any time. That's fine, but if recreation isn't getting funded by the state, I don't know what the tie-in is from waiting for the state to come up with their budget. I know I did read and I did see that the recycling budget and the clean communities budget is getting cut, and we'll probably have to do what we can somehow to come up with the funding for some of that stuff as well. The recreation, Mayor, you would see, this is where the communication process breaks down, I think. And I think that are there any recreation members here tonight?
The liaison, but hold on. Just
You
wanna
would say,
clarify.
if I could finish my thought, I'm sorry, if I could finish my thought. You had said the rec committee voted down the process last year? Sorry?
Yes, they did not. There wasn't anyone on the recreation committee that was in favor of the micro grant.
And there was a vote. Okay, that's contrary to what.
And just
some
to
of the-
give Councilor Topoulos, I can add some insight to that. And also, when we did have organizations approach the rec committee, because historically in the past, the rec committee would sponsor the mat rats with their supplies. So we directed them to the micro grant. So when
Good.
organizations came and approached us, we said, well, we have a micro grant. That's what you need to apply for to receive any fund, any support.
Good. And if it,
I'm sorry, you can keep going, Councilman.
good, that's and that's what the grant was there for.
Right.
And there was about as far as what was paid out is still in question, I think, but my count, there was almost $11,000 requested, and there was well over $7,500 allocated. If nothing else, this $7,500 still contributes to the community, in a way that before the micro grant, we've tried to do, but haven't really been able to do directly. And I'm Jay and I worked together to hone the process a little bit. I think we hit a sweet spot with how we're going to be paying the stuff out. Tom Fallon is aware, as is Diana in the finance office, and you know, it's not like 70, the money isn't going to go to Keyport residents. I'd love to keep a little bit of consistency here, especially in the times of COVID, and provide the type of assistance, you know, that is tangible and visible to the community. I'm not saying $7,500 is a meager amount. In these times, any amount of money, no matter how this governing body has or hasn't allocated it by way of direct action or indirect action, any amount of money is significant. So I understand the importance, but you know, I think that given that there's already organizations that are inquiring and asking about it, let's just vote on the week. I'd like to vote on this application, you know, with I guess some of the dates changed, and we'll move forward, and we can discuss further when the applications come in.
My other question.
I have a question, and I just need clarification because it's been a long year. There was an official vote taken by the Recreation Committee. Was that relayed to the full council? Would that be reflected in any minutes? I didn't realize that there had been some official vote taken.
He's here and he's saying yes.
Excuse me?
Councilman Cooper is here and he is saying yes.
I don't understand.
Okay.
He's saying yes.
Yes?
You know, it's,
That be
that's
reflected in
fine.
the Recreation
That's
Committee
fine.
minutes?
Yeah, I mean, that was last year, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't remember even being informed.
And as I said, I didn't have an opportunity to even discuss this with the rec committee because we don't meet until next week.
No, I'm talking about the vote for last year.
Yeah, it was last year, yes.
Right. So that would be reflected in minutes somewhere. I can look that up because I don't remember knowing that. Or being
And I'm not about hearsay, but discussions I've had with members of the committee has typically been supportive. But again, it depends on, I guess it could depend on the day, but that's why I asked if there were any rec members here, because I'd love to hear directly from them with regards to this. And so let's, what I would suggest, here's my thinking.
Question.
Councilwoman McDermott, what was the change that you wanted to make to the application?
To change the paperwork to the application to be, I guess we can push it to November 15th based on the mayor's recommendation. And then change all paperwork due by January 31st of 2021. And so there's like awarded grants. There's two dates that say March 15th, 2021, wherever we see that, it would say January 31st, 2020.
So
can I also ask a question?
Yeah.
Like one other concern is that on this application process, it says first come, first serve. So I think if one person comes and puts in 7,500, that's first come, first serve. I think we should try and at least, if you're going to have this, either call it like a $500 grant or a $1,000 grant, and then that way, if there is funding after the state budget's approved, then we don't have to make major municipal adjustments to our budget on November 1st. And then we could spread it out further as opposed to one organization getting several thousand. Because I believe you even just mentioned, Councilman Patopoulos, that some, you know, there was $11,000 requested, but 7,000 approved. So I would be happy if we could at least wait until the budgets are adopted and see if we have to move money, and then see if we can put a dollar amount.
So that's actually the beauty of the council voting on the each and every application. Certainly, I would be against any application that came in at $7,500. The notion is that, you know, they have a documented need, and that need is you know, for a specific amount. And typically what we've done is, as a council, not as an individual, but as a council, the sweet spot was $2,000 tops. Given that this is cut in half, maybe, my thinking when an application comes before us is to limit it to $1,000. That's what I would suggest when and if the application comes before us. But we have a power as a council to limit the amount no matter what. Again, just to try and keep things a little simple and move them along. Bullet item 2 is the one that Councilwoman McDermott, you were talking about. Funds are limited,
Yes.
applications will be accepted and so move that to November, you said? From October?
Yeah, I guess it was November 15th, but it's based on whenever the budget for the state gets approved. So I think it was.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that the recreation is not
So-
affected by the state budget.
Okay, so it was
Councilman Papapoulos, hold on one second.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Papapoulos, anything that was allocated in a budget on November 1st can absolutely be amended. So we could take that money and have to put it somewhere else.
Did I say it couldn't be?
You're saying it's not impacted, but
No,
what I'm saying is that if we
I think you're
hit a
misunderstanding me.
financial, no, I think you're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is that once we find out what is happening, once we find out what's happening with the state budget and what's being cut, before we have to face layoffs or anything else, I think we may have to reconsider moving money around in the budget. We won't know that until the state budget is approved on October 1st. Clearly, this is the first time that we've ever had to go to an October 1st state budget. So is it a unique timing situation? Yes, but it's not one that any of us created.
I agree.
I don't think he's disagreeing. I think he's just making a simple point that the recreation funding the source of that funding isn't in the state budget. Of course, we're going to have to be flexible with the budget this year. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. Also, I mean, to be talking about layoffs, I mean, is that something the borough's looking at? Again, that's not anything I've heard from anybody until tonight.
It's an example of something that we, could potentially face if these things aren't funded. So that the state is talking about cutting. So we may have to pull the money from recreation if necessary. Those conversations are a lot of maybes. So since there's so many maybes, that's why I'm suggesting that we wait and see what actually passes in the state budget.
I would like to go on the record of saying that if we were in a position where we need to be laying off employees, obviously we would have a conversation about the entire budget to figure out a way to keep people on payroll.
Right.
And I would assume that our unions would also want that too.
Right. I mean, it's.
If I can.
If they were all union employees, I agree.
I don't know.
Can I just
try not to? I'm trying to keep it at
Councilman Good.
Let me
Councilman
interject.
Good.
Just because it seems like we're talking about some kind of ending determination before we're even getting there. The mayor has a good point about possibly moving money around. Nevertheless, like Councilman Fotopoulos said, and actually Councilman Sheridan said, this really just is setting down parameters for a program to apply. Now, if we have 1 million applications, if we have 2 applications, if we have no applications, all of that is secondary to establishing this, which is really the resolution that's before this council. It's just to establish this application. Now, whether or not we end up allocating certain monies, whether or not we need to move around is really secondary to this. I think that we're not arguing against each other. We're actually there's different points and different times. It may come to pass that we need to move the entire $7,500 out of the recreation budget and into some other budget, but really that's not the question here. This is not allocating and not reserving any money. We're just trying to see about, okay, here's the application. At the end of the day, there's no problems with money being distributed. We're just setting up the application. So I want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse here. We're just establishing a program. Once again, we're not spending the money.
Correct.
We're not awarding the money, and it may come to pass that you're right, we do need to move this money. So,
Correct. Which is what I said from the beginning.
Right.
So if we could just change the date.
we can change, I changing the date to November 15th. I don't have an issue with. I don't think that Councilman Fotopoulos has an issue. I don't think that we would have a problem taking the word recreation off of this and just call it a 2020 micro grant application. And then moving
My request from the beginning.
to the moving
Which
the
we
request
agreed
for
with.
January 31st.
Nobody disagreed with.
Is that,
Yeah, Mayor, I'm not looking to conflict what you're saying. I'm not. I agree with removing. I'm just trying to get the date established, and I appreciate Councilman Good being, articulating what I think both of us agree on. So let's see what is the, so is the funds are limited. Applications will be accepted on a first come, first served basis until November 15th. And this way we'll be able to establish whether or not we can fund the applications after the budget and we make a determination.
I also believe one of the proposed edits is to remove the sentence, the part of the sentence that says applications will be accepted on a first come, first served basis, because I believe, I think the intent is not going to be a race to submit. It's going to be a review
Consideration.
Right.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
taking
I
that
have
out should be
that
part of
too. I'm okay with that amendment.
Fine.
That also gives us leeway to say maybe we don't give $1,000 to X, but to the Y. You know what I'm saying? It gives us a little bit more leeway to review applications.
And I don't know that we have to take it all the way to November 15th, because that's a quick turnaround time for council to have to vote on it. So if you guys even want to say November 1st, instead, November, maybe it was November 15th. Never mind. No, wait.
November, well, I'll defer to you on this, Mayor, but November 15th sounds good.
Yeah.
We would have one meeting. I don't know. That's kind of close, right?
Yeah, that is kind of close.
All right. So
Jay's talking.
that's
Which
our
one?
only meeting in November, huh?
I believe we have a meeting scheduled for the 17th.
I have to check, because usually we're at League of Municipalities, so our November meetings are always different. So let me just pull that up real quick. Michelle, you don't know the November meeting date off the top of your head.
It's November 10th.
November
November
10th?
10th.
Maybe we just leave it the same day as is, because we're not looking at whether we could sponsor this or not, depending on budget. It's based on budgeted allowances, right? So we just leave the original date of October 15th and December 31st, January 31st for everything else. Do remove the word recreation, that first come, first serve. So it is discretionary. I do think we need to put a cap on this, because we will have organizations that may come and give us $2,000 as a request. So I think we have to have a cap on this if we're even going to consider anything, given the budget got switched by half.
So we're back to leaving it October 31st? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. It's not, organizations, they should be able to be submitting this if they're eligible.
So it's moving from October 15th to October 31st.
Is that good, Jay? That works for Jay too, for processing.
Okay.
So
And
October
then-
31st.
And then the dates.
And then what was the submission date?
or it was
The
January 31st?
receipt submissions is January 31st.
January 31st.
So, and then I guess the final question, so 3 things would be remove recreation. The date for submission for the application is October 31st instead of October 15th. And the date of receipts would be January 31st instead of March.
Right, where we see March
And then
15,
the last
20.
final, and then the
Just-
last final piece, I guess, would be whether there's a cap or not. That's what you said, Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes.
So given that the average last year was $2,000 and the grant was 15, why don't we make it $1,000 cap?
I don't
I like
even
that
see
idea.
why. We're
I don't
gonna-
either, but I'd like to I'm not disagreeing with, you know, I think council can establish that cap as on a, you know, at our discretion, but.
Right, so why don't we deal with it when the applications come in and ask? I mean, I'd hate to say like, you know, if somebody comes in and asks for 2,000, we can, you know, we can award 1,750, we can award 1,000. You know, why hamstring us now? We're like already trying to decide applications that may or may not be coming in months from now.
Okay. So
Okay, I want to put a motion on the floor.
Update.
I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we accept, what is this, 23620? We approve 23620 with the noted edits on the record, changing October 15th to October 31st, 2020, and changing March 15th in the next bullet item of 2021 to January 31st of 2021. And we remove recreation from the title of the micro grant program.
Second.
Well, what about the
first come, first served?
Oh, right. And
sorry. And we also remove accepted on a first come, first served basis.
all the noted. Second.
Oh, can we have a roll call on that one, please? Did you get all those? No. Okay.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos.
Yes. Can you hear me?
No, because I'm muted here.
Hold on one second. Hold
I
on
got
one
you.
second. You did? Okay.
I got you.
Can you hear me
Good.
okay, though?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you. Councilmember Good?
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott? Councilmember McDermott?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Sheridan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have introduction of ordinances. Ordinance number 1, adopting the Hudson Point redevelopment plan. If the clerk can read the ordinance by title, please.
It's an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport in the County of Monmouth adopting the Hudson Point redevelopment plan for property identified as Block 120, lots 8 and 9, and Block 130, lots 42, 48, 49, 50, 51, and 52 on the tax map of the borough.
Have a motion to introduce.
Motion.
Second.
Councilwoman McDermott, you had questions on this one before. Now you
No.
would.
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
guess, yes. I seconded, by the way. I don't know.
You can second it, but you can have discussion that does
Oh,
now.
okay. So my question was regarding the plan. How is there any variance from what was communicated to us a few months ago regarding the plan?
Councilman Gunn.
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring. It is well, I'm not going to say exactly word for word, but it is. There are no material changes to what was informed months ago, I guess, is for lack of a better term.
It looks consistent. I just wanted to get the
Yeah. There's nothing that changes either in the number of units or the heights or anything like that. It's what it was back when we referred it to the planning board, I think like 2 months ago or so.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Member Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
Councilmember Good,
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as introduced in the Asbury Park Press for a public hearing.
Motion. I
Second.
beat you, Joe.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or nay? Okay. Communications by consent for approval. We have items 1 through 5, and then to receive and file, we have 6 and 7. Does anyone have any discussion on any of these before we move forward with the vote? Okay. So can we please have a motion to approve and or receipt and file items number 1 through 7 under communications by consent and approval?
Motion.
Second.
Can we please have a roll call, Michelle?
Councilmember Cooper, Councilmember Fotopoulos,
Yes.
and Councilmember Good,
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Pacheco,
Yes.
Councilmember Pacheco, Councilwoman Pacheco,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sheridan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of minutes, but as noted earlier, I'd like to table the August 18th minutes to the next meeting. So can we have a motion to approve November 12th? I'm not sure if there was anyone absent at that meeting, so I guess they would have to abstain, but the November 12th, 2019 regular council meeting minutes. Can I have a motion for those?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't have to abstain because I was late, right? Stupid question of the day.
Hmm?
You have to just
I didn't hear what you
abstain.
said.
I'll abstain.
Oh. She's gonna
Just
abstain.
from the first 24 minutes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, new business. We are going to table that to the next meeting. I believe Jay and Mark Moon should have something done by next Tuesday on this, so that it's on the agenda for the next meeting. So, Mr. Lean brought up Beach Park outfall pipe. I do know that the engineers have been looking and working on resolutions and meeting with Mr. Delaney about that. Am I correct, Mr. Delaney? You guys have been meeting on the storm fallout, as well as the pump station that's not connected.
The two issues, one is
I don't know that they could hear you. Hold on.
We don't hear you.
I can't hear Jay.
See no.
testing,
I can't hear him.
testing, still nothing?
Now they can.
Now they can, okay. There seems to be
Yes, I got
something. Yes, the two related issues, the engineers reviewing code. The outfall improvements, and then the second is the non-functioning pump station related to the adjacent development on Front Street. I'm sorry, on First Avenue. But the engineer is reviewing them.
Thank you. Anyone else have a new or unfinished business?
I have,
Go ahead, Councilman Pacheco.
Sorry.
Did you have something?
so
Councilwoman Pacheco, did you have something?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes,
Okay.
for new business, I just wanted, we missed the agenda addition time, but just want to update everyone that the third movie for the rec committee could not be done in August, so we're asking that the new date will be September 14th on a Monday evening at dusk. And the rain date will be September 21st. And the reason that we're still going to move forward with this is we still pay for licensing, so we should utilize it since we have an opportunity. Just want to give everyone that update. So that's what the rec committee asked as the alternative dates.
Should I make a motion to accept those dates? I make a motion.
Yes. Okay.
I make a motion, we accept those dates as reported by Councilwoman McDermott.
I second. Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Mr. Delaney, did you have anything for new business?
Just a quick report.
Go ahead.
Okay. Am I being heard? Okay.
Yes, we hear you now.
Just to report to the council, as part of the Monmouth County Open Space Grant Program, in our next regular meeting, we'll be conducting a required public hearing.
We're losing you again.
I have to leave.
Okay.
You're good.
I think you're only picking up on her sound is the problem.
Last year, the application under this program was submitted for improvements to the mini park. We are revising the scope of that work to reflect some things that have been that are being implemented as part of the neighborhood preservation program. Additionally, we'll be submitting a component or presenting to the council a component for improvements to the Cedar Street Park as well. You will be seeing that as part of the next meeting agenda.
Mr. Delaney, you don't have to do this at any time soon, but right away. But I'd love to get a report on how much open space grants we've received from the county in the last 5 years.
We'll have that information as part of the presentation of the hearing.
Great. And do we have an update on the county paving Broad Street?
We have, the issue with Broad Street is that we are the recipients of a grant for improvements to the curbs and sidewalks. That's a CDBG grant. So that is a conflicting scheduling issue. That information, we've undertaken some discussions with the county of shifting their priorities. So they push that back a year and we get something else paved in its place.
Is there any chance that I guess that means that we're going to get other county roads paved in the borough, correct?
Well, that's part of the discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
Attorney's report?
Attorney's report?
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Can I please have a motion to open
Mayor-
to the public for 5
Mayor,
minutes?
before I apologize. I meant to speak up before. I just want to answer Mr. Lane's question because before he
apologize.
asked. Mr. Lane, with regard to the tax abatements, I requested that they be held back because there were some issues with the paperwork applications that were filed that I wanted to get some clarification from our tax counsel. That being said, those applications for the tax abatements do not impact our tax assessor adding those properties under the added assessment rolls. One has nothing to do with the other. The timing of the putting them on the rolls is completely separate from whether or not we're granting our abatement. So there's no delay just based upon our reconsidering of the abatement issues. And I believe that the applications, most of them, need to be, I guess, resubmitted, and we should be getting them on the next by the next meeting. So that was the intent. So I just wanted to answer Mr. Lane's question.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion to open to the public, 5 minutes per person?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Funk, since you had your hand up first and the other public portion, I will refer to you now. We can hear you.
Can't hear.
Do you, she did unmute. She turned the microphone off. The mute off.
Not muted on my
We
screen.
still can't hear you.
Donna, if maybe I can help Donna, if you go to, you're on a PC or you're on a Mac, right? Okay. If you go down to the lower left-hand corner where the mute button is in Zoom, there should be an arrow that points up. Click that arrow and select the mic. Up top, same as system. It should be the same as system. You should use the same as system, but no. Try all of them. You're muted right now.
She just muted herself.
Unmute.
Maybe you could text her and just have her call in.
Yeah.
Phone-
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, you
No?
can hear me now?
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
I don't know what happened. Thank you so much for letting me speak again. Michelle, I want to thank you for, I know we got the information late today about the possibility of something that could work for my house at 80 Fulton, which I know we talked about 2 weeks ago. Lenny has also been trying to dial in. I don't know if he's been able to get in yet. Basically, what and Jay and I talked about over the last 2 weeks about, the easement that's at 80 Fulton. What we did is we went back to, our engineers and we found a way, hopefully, that we can still build the same house, just moving it over, giving the town, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm, this isn't my forte. I'm just kind of, relaying the information, but giving the town and then if you can approve that, which would still be within the setbacks that are allowed, I'll have my lawyer write that up and send it to the town. And it kind of seems like a win-win for everybody and the quickest. Oh, I see Lenny's on. You could probably explain this better than I am. So it sounds like it's a win-win for everybody. It gets us back in our house, hopefully construction, as soon as possible. It allows the town to still have the easement and hopefully, you guys can agree to that. So Lenny, if you can explain that better than I just did, please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hold on 1 second, Mr. Rubenstein. So yes, we did receive your communication very late this afternoon. I know Mr. Delaney and Mr. Moon were trying to scramble to even process this, but it still has to be deferred to the professionals. So Mr. Delaney wanted to speak on this for a minute because I know there was some also additional information from what we received at the last meeting, where it is an active 6-inch main that does support part of the municipality. So Mr. Delaney will update on what he has on this.
Follow the same instructions I gave Ms. Bonk, Jay. Lower left-hand corner.
Being heard now? Yeah, okay. Yes, as the mayor indicated, the information that was presented to us right before the meeting 2 weeks ago, we have had a chance to review it, and it appears that the easement is still needed. That property easement provides the borough with the ability to maintain a 6-inch water main that runs through that property connecting Fulton to Manchester. In any event, the property owner late this afternoon has presented us with a revised set of plans shifting the location of the house so that the existing water main is no longer impacted. That information was forwarded late this afternoon to the borough's engineer. I expect that will receive a satisfactory review and they can proceed as if this inconvenience had not occurred. I don't believe at this point there's any formal action required of the governing body. The property owner has offered to provide us with a clearer easement. The existing easement is not well defined other than it's for the purpose of constructing and maintaining the water main. What is being offered now is a clear delineation of a 20-foot wide easement, the location precisely known, so that in 100 years from now, we don't run into this issue again.
Thank you. Mr. Rubenstein, did you want to say anything on this?
Yes, hi, everybody. Hope everybody's well. So weird. Anyway, so we did have the engineer. We located the pipe. We exposed the pipe. I had the survey crew go out there. We surveyed the pipe, and it seems to be that the house does work if we stay basically within the same easement as there now, but actually fully delineate it, get the meets and bounds of it. And my suggestion would be to vacate and adopt at the same time a new easement that's more up to date, like a 2020 kind of looking easement, that this way the borough's comfortable with it. It's not written with a feather, and there's going to be no dispute as to what can and can't be done on the property. We can put the deed restrictions in place as well, so that again this pipe is protected from the borough standpoint, and Ms. Bonk can then obviously utilize as much of her property as is left over after that easement has been enforced. We can have our engineer draw the meets and bounds and complete the survey and plot plan, obviously at no cost to the borough, and just have maybe your attorneys and engineers review it to make sure that everyone's comfortable with it, so that Ms. Bonk can go ahead and reconstruct the home on the property. Other than that, the only thing we were going to ask is that based on the document that we sent you, I know how things are moving, especially with with COVID and everybody being disjointed. But if you would allow your attorney and engineer review the plot plan that we had circulated earlier this afternoon for consistency, and possibly while the legal end of it is being dealt with from the borough and her attorney, maybe if it's acceptable in theory, we can then stake out her home based on the premise that that's going to be okay after your engineer and attorney review it, and maybe we can continue building her home so that maybe she could possibly get in by the end of the year, as she's been worried about doing. So that's basically where we are right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to defer to Councilman questions on this, and then defer to Mr. Moon to confirm if the process is okay. Councilman Good, do you have any questions?
Actually, no. I mean, the bottom line is, honestly, I'm not sure what the old easement, if there was one. Doesn't seem like there's one, but to me,
There was an easement.
There was or was not.
Yes, there
okay.
is an easement.
Right. So I don't know if we're moving, or this is really just kind of toss it over to Mark to draft.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the extent of it. In theory, and I'm not going to have any issue when we're just delineating an easement, but we as a council, we confirm and vote on actual easements, and we're going to do our best to hurry this on. And I fully expect the easement to be, if ready for next council meeting, to say, go for it.
Yeah.
That's what I expect.
I think that's what Mr. Delaney was saying though before, is that they're actually chose to move the house as opposed to change the easement, and they're actually going to make the easement wider. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So,
It'll be delineated more effectively.
Is
Okay,
technically an expansion of if it's, I guess what my question is, since it's an expansion of an existing easement, and the expansion is in our favor, not theirs, do we really need to bring that back to a council vote? Or can the engineers and the attorney and Jay work this out themselves?
Well, this is what my thoughts are. So obviously, clarifying, vacating the old one and replacing it with a more clearer, specific easement. That's something that I would have to bring to the borough to get them to authorize the execution of any sort of deed of easement. But I guess that really wouldn't impact Ms. Bonk's ability to proceed, especially now, because any construction's really not going to interfere with that easement anymore. My only question is, I don't know whether moving of the structure of the proposed dwelling affects any of the setbacks or any of the planning or zoning issues. If it's consistent, then really there's nothing. Really
I agree. That doesn't. If you're giving us more, I don't see any reason why the construction would be delayed.
Right.
As long as you don't. Well, I don't. If you're even if you decided we're not going to give you as much, it is what it is. And if you said, we're going to only give you 15 feet, or what it usually is 15 feet, and we don't feel like giving the extra 5. Well, then really that's your call, Donna.
Literally, if you don't have.
As Mr. Moon pointed out, do we have to have any of this go back to the construction office at all if they're changing the plan?
Well, the whole idea is if there's no bulk variances that are needed as far as setbacks or any of the dimensions, they could literally go to the construction office and take out permits tomorrow. I mean, because it looks like.
But I'm just saying, has the new plan came in today? So with the changing of the house, do we know that there isn't anything needed?
I think there's two different questions. One is probably the more important one to Donna is, can there be constructions? Like, is there anything delaying construction? And I think, and Mark's going to correct me if I'm wrong here, but as long as you're not interfering with the easement as it sits today, with regard to this council, there's nothing for us to do. When we get to the second part of actually saying, here, we'd like to give you a bigger easement, that's going to be something that I guess technically vote on to say, yeah, we accept that more property, right, Mark?
That's absolutely right.
So I just want to clarify.
Right. So go ahead.
So Donna, Ms. Monk can pull permit, start construction, because it would be based, as long as she doesn't interfere with the current easement, and then it's just a matter of process for us to draw up and draft what the new easement would look like, but she can start building, because I just want to do whatever gets her moving,
Yeah, I mean, the drawing that she sent us, literally her house is on one side, the easement's over here, so they wouldn't overlap. So, there would really be no need to come back for any sort of approval other than, cleaning up the easement stuff. That's slow it down.
From us, but what I'm asking you, just want to confirm, is that no construction change has been made by changing whatever they sent in today that we haven't had time on the dais to review. And I just want to make sure that those are two exclusionary things. If there's some kind of major change in construction or setbacks or what have you, us having this discussion about an easement doesn't waive all of that.
Right.
Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, there would still, and I just want that point of clarification, because I did not have time to review and sit and look at construction plans or know what was approved prior. So if the moving of all of this changes any kind of already approved construction approvals, these are two exclusionary types of discussions. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, again, maybe it's because I don't know where the process has been up to this point, but I mean, I'm assuming that construction permits haven't been pulled yet.
They have.
They have.
They
Oh, okay.
have. That's how they found the pipe.
Okay. So then, yeah, they just have to just go in, submit the new permit applications. They'll tell you whether or not there's any bulk variance issues. And then if there isn't, then.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that even the easement, even if we didn't need to come back to council for that, that is not, you know, just waive everything for construction without them being notified. Right.
Can I clarify, if everything is going in the direction that it sounds like it is, I think that our process is our building permits stay the same with reference to the building because we haven't modified the existing structure. But I think we have to submit a new plot plan for zoning to approve, make sure that the side setbacks and the front setbacks haven't been infringed on.
And that's what I'm.
Yeah, and we'll do that as long as you guys are okay with it. That's why we wanted to circulate that today quickly, only just to get an idea from you if it's okay for us to submit a new plot plan and continue working while the semantics of the actual easement are going to be dealt with within whatever timely fashion you fit. That's all.
Okay.
So if it's okay with you guys, I guess I'll instruct our engineer to sign and seal the new plot plan showing that new easement. Submit it to Lori's office and have zoning review it, and then I guess recertify the existing permit to move forward with construction while the easements are being put in place. Have I understood correctly how we're going to proceed?
Yeah.
Only if that easement is going to be signed with a feather pen like it was 100 years ago.
Okay, I'll go pluck one today.
Can I just say, I really want to thank all of you for understanding our urgency and really like helping my family get home as quick as we can. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
anyone else on the public?
On a side note, I dialed in late because I was kind of incapacitated, but I know that there was some movement with reference to Manchester. Can I just get a really quick, like, one sentence as to what happened, because we were all on pins and needles?
The ordinance was introduced.
Right. First reading passed, and then so it's got to go to second reading next meeting.
Next meeting will be the second meeting, and after that, if everything goes well, it would go to planning.
Would have to go wait 45 days.
45 days from the next.
You have to wait.
Right. There's a time element to it.
Got you.
But
Okay,
you're going to the planning board for the site plan approval, but
yes, but that can't happen until 2 weeks plus 45 days if everything went well. It might.
I believe the 45. Yes, I believe that's accurate. Let me just double check. I got to check the statute again.
Give or take a day or so.
Right.
Okay, so 60 days away technically from today would be the appeal period expiration, at which point procedurally we would be allowed to submit a plan to the planning board for review. And I'm only just trying to gauge everything, obviously, just from our perspective, just for my professional.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I thank you very much, everybody. I really do.
Anyone else from the public? We'll go by video first, and then we'll go to phone. If anyone on the public wishes to speak, you can raise your hand.
Yeah.
Mr. Graham?
Yes, Elmer J. Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Quick question on the Complete Streets Initiative. What is the latest on that?
We'll be having a stakeholders meeting tomorrow, and then I believe some discussions will be had on what the next Councilman Stoplis, what are the other groups called?
That was so yeah, you're close. Tomorrow is the core team, and then after that we're going to have we're going to have the extended team, and then sometime after that stakeholders may be involved again. Elmer, you're one of them.
Right.
So but tomorrow is when the core team is going to meet, and the only people on the call here today that are on the core team are Councilwoman Pacheco and I, and of course the mayor.
Okay,
We'll
thank
have-
you, Ken.
We'll probably have more of a timeline, hopefully, soon. for You guys.
Yep.
Okay, concrete one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the phone lines have anything to?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport.
Hi, Mr. Lane.
Building on Councilman Good's input on the 5-year tax statement. So are these properties now on the tax rolls, or when do they go on the tax?
If I don't exactly know when the deadline is from the tax board for putting them on the tax rolls. That being said, according to the tax assessor, it will be a number of months when they stop completion. So it's not when the tax board accepts it. The added assessment portion is going to say that this has been used for, just off the top, like 6 months. So the added assessment will be 6 months because it started in June 1st. It's not when the tax board hears it. It's the tax assessor's application is saying that it is on the tax rolls as of whatever date the tax assessor says that it was completed.
So if somebody has a CO, it should be on the tax roll.
If you're talking about procedurally, you have to wait until you get before the tax board. But once it's in front of the tax board, the date of the CO will be included. So if the hearing date is in October, the added assessment portion is still going to run from June when they got the CO, or even before that, rather than an October tax board hearing date. Am I clear?
I didn't realize it had to go to the tax board in Freehold.
It needs to be submitted as an added assessment since it's only a partial year assessment. For a full year assessment, the tax board says that, our tax assessor submits it by November 1st for the full year's tax roll. So anything that shows up, or at least starts in the middle of the year, they have a added assessment application date. So there's a different hearing date for added assessments.
So the same thing would apply to Bay Point on Green Grove, who are not listed on the tax rolls.
If they came in as a partial year, then yes, if it's a partial year, it's an added assessment versus the regular, it's submitted at a different time to try to get whatever partial months there are going back.
So we won't see it in the Mod 4 database till next year. All right.
Well, I'm not saying till next year. It might be that the county updates their Mod 4 before that, and it'll show up once accepted as an added assessment.
All right. One quick comment on the outfall pipe. We've had experience with 3 different engineering firms who did work on waterfront projects that didn't complete satisfactory. One was the bulkhead on the promenade. I had to go to the Army Corps of Engineers to get the plan shut down and reworked. The appeal of the FEMA flood maps, again, didn't go through. We had to rework it. And then the bulkhead design in an adjacent town failed the first time it was challenged. So not every engineering firm is capable of doing design work on the waterfront. And we found that under Mr. Gallo's direction, we employed Matrix New World to solve a number of these problems. And so I think you really need to look at whether the firm that did the initial design on the outfall pipe has the capability to solve the problem.
Thank you.
A couple of quick other questions a couple of people asked me to bring up. Right now, there are 2 dumpsters behind the Junkology place on Broad. And this is like 4 years after we required that all dumpsters be in enclosure. Is the borough going to take action on that?
They've already had discussions with him.
Yes. But there's no timeline.
I'm not sure what the property maintenance file asked spoke with them about.
I would appreciate if that could go on unfinished business and be covered in the next meeting.
I think it would also depend on what's going to end up happening with the borough property usage agreement, because, you know, he was supposed to be in part of that, but it wasn't built correctly. So all the dumpsters don't fit in there that we're supposed to. So
Right,
we
but
can't really give all the other businesses a free enclosure and then not, since he was supposed to be part of that plan and then got kicked out of that plan. So we're waiting to find out what we're doing with that.
We forced the fishery to enclose. We forced the yacht club.
I'm aware.
And all right, one other item. The new bridge over Tingarora Creek. Are the drawings available for inspection?
We can look into that.
And I bring that up because we dropped the ball completely on the Matawan Creek Bridge. And again, the engineers dropped it. And so I would appreciate finding out and whether those drawings are available for inspection. I'd like to inspect them.
They would be on the county.
Right, I believe it's a county project.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but we reached.
I do know that they were talking about landowners over there because they had to actually get an easement because of it. So they're definitely in conversations with. So I would check with the county website, but I mean, obviously it's going to go through Keyport. But
I will remind you that Mr. Gallo worked to assure that the borough would be informed of and be able to verify that the roadway approach to that bridge would be sufficient to avoid flooding.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And so it's not just a county problem.
I didn't say it was a county problem, Mr. Lane. I said it was a county project.
Right, but we're supposed to have our hands in that project.
I understand, but I'm saying it's not on our borough website because it's not our project. Doesn't mean that we're not going to review it or follow it.
I was asking whether it's available, the drawings are available at Borough Hall. If not, they need to be. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public?
Yes, Ed Carew.
Hi, Mr. Crew.
It's Ed Carew, 64 Broadway. I'm concerned about what seems to be an increase this summer in the number of souped-up cars accelerating rapidly on our roads with loud muffler noise and backfiring. I think the rapid acceleration is disturbing and the noise is sometimes very loud. The backfiring sometimes sounds like gunfire or large explosions. At the very least, this is disturbing the peace. And is this on the borough's radar? And is there anything that you could do to address my concern? Thank you.
Captain Torres, it looks like you want to say something.
I can answer that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm good.
I would encourage you, just if you hear something, call it in immediately. That would help us to reroute our officers or route an officer to the area of the issue. And we can probably start to stop a vehicle if you call it in immediately. When you hear it, it really helps to alert us. So as soon as you hear something like that, call 264-0706. Let them know. If you happen to see a brief description, that would be great too, and we'll send one of our officers over. I think a few times pulling vehicles over, if they are violating any Title 39, usually like it sends a message and maybe we can get them to slow down over there.
Captain Torres, this is good, but the rapid acceleration is like such that I'm on Broadway, 64 Broadway.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is coming from West Front Street, and sometimes they turn and go up Broadway.
Okay.
It is so rapid that there's no way I can get out there fast enough to identify the car. You can hear them going over the Aberdeen, the Matawan Creek Bridge.
Right. And
the backfiring is huge. Sometimes it sounds like they're tearing their engines apart and staying in first gear in a long time. So
you're talking about two separate, one is like a souped up vehicle, you're saying with violations of like the muffler and stuff like that, or additions on the vehicle. I would say as soon as you hear that though, if we don't if we hear something like that, we can always send it to the next town. Believe it or not, if you're hearing that in your area and you call it in to us, chances are if there is a violation going on, if we don't stop it, we work closely with Aberdeen, or going the opposite way, our dispatchers will just call it into them. So we do have communications. As soon as you call 706, we'll forward it to where it needs to go. So I still would encourage you just to pick up the phone. We'll try to watch the area. If you can maybe give me a call tomorrow at headquarters, and we can talk more about times and stuff and when it's happening.
Okay, I was just wondering, is this only my concern, or has this been
No.
anybody else?
No, it's not, Ed.
It's not.
No,
Okay,
not at
so-
all.
All right, so it just seems like that from what I'm hearing, that a few people are aware of this noise situation. Yeah, I can certainly do those things. I've done it in the past, and what bothers me a little bit about that is that we had this tiki bar right on the Matawan Creek many years ago when I first moved into Keyport, and I'm talking like in the late 80s, early 90s. And I made complaints about the motorcycles that were going to this tiki bar. And
Yeah, I remember.
if you know me, I don't really complain very often, but I put my money where my mouth is. So I wrote a letter to my neighbors and asking them to do what the police asked me to do, is to report it, because the more times you complain, then it jeopardizes the liquor license of the tiki bar, which, by the way, is no longer there. So it's just history. At any rate, the word got out to some of these motorcycle people, and I got a death threat. And my daughter picked up the phone and, advised that they may find me in the trunk of the car one night. And, I'm okay with that. If someone wants to say that to my face, I think that I could deal with it like an adult. And is it scary? It was scary for her. But we did go down and file a complaint again with the police department. Ultimately, the tiki bar was closed down. I don't see this being the same thing. It does happen very, very quickly. And I can certainly try to do that. But I think if I call you and say there's a car running down, you'd be tired of listening to Ed Carew, because it happens frequently. I'm talking several times a day, and predominantly in the evening and early evening hours. And in fact, when I was listening to this broadcast, a car went down the street just doing the same thing. I mean, it's just loud. And some of it, I can't tell if they're speeding or not, except that I hear them going all the way out down to Aberdeen, in some ways, sometimes all the way out to the Parkway if it's a quiet night. It's just amazing.
Either way, it's a violation. So why don't you give me a call tomorrow, and we can talk a little more about what I can come up with a plan to alert the officers as to when and where, and we'll have enforcement in that area.
Can you give me that phone number again, please?
264-0706.
0706.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Thank you, Ed.
That's all.
This is Mike Lane on First Street. I'd like to reinforce what Ed said. I mean, these cars go down the hill, decelerate, and backfire. Unbelievable. And they accelerate going up the hill, and the mufflers are just... We used to have an ordinance that the mufflers would be checked when you went to motor vehicle, but obviously not in place. And Captain Torres, I'd be happy to join you on that conversation.
I can say when I've called it in, they've responded. So, because it happens up down Beer Street all the time. I just hate bothering them all the time.
I think this is more for a conversation for us to move communication forward to the county of a request for us to be a 25-mile-per-hour municipality throughout the entire municipality except for the highways. So if council's in favor of that, I can start a dialogue letter over at the county if you want to start those conversations. Granted, that's not necessarily going to stop someone from still speeding if they were speeding, whether it was 35 or 25, but I think this is a good segue to start looking into the 25 throughout the municipality, unless any council members objection.
None, but full disclosure, Mayor. I'm sorry, Vicky, go ahead.
I was gonna say, before we reach out to the county, I would like to make sure that Captain Torres and Chief Hafner are looped into that. I know that there were some questions about whether or not that could be done on a couple of the roads, and I think that they would need to have their input before you would approach the county.
The good news is, Mayor, is that the Environmental Commission and has been working to, before COVID, we actually had a meeting scheduled, members of the Environmental Commission had a meeting scheduled with both Captain Torres, Chief Hafner, and Commissioner Pacheco, along with Ken DeGroat and Chairman Ken DeGroat and Vice Chair Palmisano. You know, now that hopefully now we'll be able to, now that it's come up, maybe we can sit down and we can discuss that a little bit. Our focus was going to be on First Street, but certainly it was on the other county roads throughout the town that we were looking at. And I think a letter from you would only help the cause, but we'll proceed with those meetings, right, Captain? And
Yeah, that would be great because he is discussing two separate issues. Like one is those souped up cars that are
Right, I
coming in with
understand.
mufflers,
Right.
and the other issue is the speeding. So there's two separate, totally separate issues. And I do agree that a 25-mile-per-hour would be great to stop one issue, but then the second issue with the souped up cars and the loud mufflers that a lot of the younger kids have driving into town, that's a separate issue. You know, it's not to say that they're speeding, they're just cars are really, they put stuff on their mufflers and their exhausts to make them super loud. So there's two separate issues he's talking about.
typically,
Right, no, I understand, but I was only talking about the speed factor on the county roads. Obviously, there's speed issues throughout the entire municipality, not just on the county roads. All you have to do is sit in my backyard and you know what color the traffic light is on 36 in Atlantic because they turn off a CVS and they fly down to try and catch the green light. So you don't even need to know, you don't even have to be standing in my front yard to know what color the traffic light is. So, and that's not a county road. So speeding, you know, is definitely, they're going to, whether it's posted or not, but I think, as I said last year, if we could follow Atlantic Highlands, I put that request in multiple times to see if we could do the 25 throughout the municipality like they did. So since that letter never got written, I can write it on behalf of the mayor of the municipality, but I'll talk to Chief Hafner and Captain Torres before I send the letter.
I encourage you to do that. I spent about 20 minutes down on First Street where that speed recognition signage is, and the cars are going 40, 45 miles an hour. About every fourth. And there is information that Mike Palmisano has generated that says if you're on a county road and the size of the properties and the setbacks of the properties, there's criteria under those conditions, it should be 25 miles an hour. My property is only 36 feet wide. The house next to me is only about 12 feet from the curb. Cars going 40, 45 miles an hour. And our understanding is that with the density of homes on First Street, we should qualify for 25 miles an hour.
we should all sign the letter, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure that the chief is on board before we reach out.
Yeah, we don't need to.
We're absolutely on board. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak? I have a motion to close for the public.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.